Besides the ability to decide what the government can't or can't do to people, and the whole every decision you make has the potential to impact decades and decades of future lawmaking, the coolest part about being on the Supreme Court is no doubt wearing those sexy ass black robes. It's like getting to play dress up every day. Oh, yeah, that's some good robe. But why do we still wear these kind of archaic robes in 2018? And why black? Justices aren't dark wizards that hand down mystical interpretations. They're just lizard people. In the days before independence, most judges wore red robes and powdered wigs. John Jay, the first Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, wore robes with a red and a white trim to them, which, judging by this picture, was made from an old tent and some duct tape. The change from red to black came from Thomas Jefferson, who saw America as a humble republic of farmers, and that anything with too much pomp and circumstance would be too pretentious for us. I've got to imagine the conversation went something like,
John, what in the name of Socrates are you wearing?
"Oh, you like it? My mom sewed it. I wanted it to be colorful like the British judges."
Like the what now?
Like the British?
Get the hell out of my office and don't you come back until you're wearing something sensible.
Now, it's worth noting that not every judge wears black robes. In the Maryland Supreme Court, for instance, they still wear the red robes. Because, well, Maryland. Looking like a courtroom full of lobsters. Most justices on the Supreme Court these days get their robes from a company called Bentley and Simon, a small Virginian robe shop that employs only about a dozen tailors to make academic, religious, and judicial robes. These robes have been called the Lamborghini of judge robes and are worn by justices from Chief Justice Roberts to Judge Judy. No, seriously, that's true. They wear the same type of robe. If you want to cop yourself one of these robes, you can. There's no law against it. Just be prepared because the judicial model runs about $400 on the website. But you can add up to 3 pockets, choose the type of material, and even get your initials sewn on it. Sandra Day O'Connor, the first woman to sit on the Supreme Court, wore the same robe that she had worn as a trial judge in Arizona, and adorned it with a little collar around her neck. Ruth Bader Ginsburg, aka the notorious RBG, also used this bib, which it turns out is called a jabot, and she has a sizable collection of them. She has a special jabot that she wears for majority opinions, and one that she wears when she's issuing dissenting opinions. Little self-fashioning tidbit that I think is really cool, and she's become pretty famous for. Now, other justices have also made their own additions and accessories. Chief Justice Rehnquist had 4 golden stripes sewn onto the arms of his robe, styled off of the British Lord Chancellor that he'd seen in a Gilbert and Sullivan show. Which, that's kind of doing the most. Like, we get it, dog. You're the Chief Justice. You're kind of doing the most here, Bill. Another interesting accessory is the hat. Yeah, apparently instead of powdered wigs, the justices wore hats. I couldn't find much information about this except that Scalia decided to wear one of these hats during Obama's second inauguration, and everybody laughed at him. As they should, because it looks ridiculous. So, what if you're on the other side of the bench of Inquisition, and you have to argue your case in front of the Supreme Court? Now, for the most part, a suit and a tie, you're probably fine, unless you're arguing for the federal government. The Solicitor General is the officer who is appointed to argue the government side at the Supreme Court. And when they go in person to make the argument, the tradition is to wear morning clothes. Now, not like the morning clothes that I wake up in, the flannels and the tank top that may or may not have holes in them. I mean like the Victoria-era suit with like the little tail and everything. George Pepper told the story that in 1890, he went to argue a case in a gray coat, and one of the justices allegedly whispered, "Who is this beast that dares to come in a gray coat?" And he wasn't able to argue his case until he left and borrowed somebody's tailcoat. A notable exception was Elena Kagan, the first woman to hold the office of Solicitor General. She only served for a single year until she actually became a justice herself. But she did not wear the morning clothes because, well, they don't really make them for women. Now, why did I make this whole entire video about what judges wear? Well, All law is rooted in historical practices, or precedents. American law is deeply rooted in traditions that trace back to English common law, to the Magna Carta, and even to the Roman collections of law. That's why there's so much Latin used in courtrooms. One commonly used Latin legal phrase is stare decisis. The decision stands. Even small traditions are important in the law. Before hearing cases, the justices will all shake hands with each other, signaling a commitment to not letting legal disagreements become personal, and the court is known for this exceptional ability to get along. Similarly, the black robes are an important symbol of unity, of tradition, and of impartiality. As Justice Antonin Scalia said during his confirmation hearing, it isn't what the law says that guarantees American liberty, it's how the law is practiced. The only reason the Constitution actually means anything is because an everyday person could take the government to court in a fair trial and win if the right was actually violated, and they've done that. Every tradition and restriction in a legal court works to support that idea. Even the silly, unbiased, uniform black cloaks. Alright, so thank you for watching the pilot episode of See You in Court. I know it's kind of rough around the edges. It's a very minimalist operation right now. I literally recorded the audio with the same phone that I'm using to record this video. But yeah, no, thank you for watching it. The goal for this series is really to try to present parts and ideas of the Supreme Court and of general legal procedure in a way that's entertaining to a degree. Because I looked on YouTube and I didn't really find anything that was particularly well presented in the way that I find entertaining. So I wanted to do that. I'm not a professor. I'm not a lawyer. Obviously, I look like I'm about freaking 16. I barely have a high school diploma. So I'm not an expert on the subject, and this was this first episode was it was a light subject. It wasn't particularly controversial. I do have some more controversial script episodes written. It's particularly the one about Scalia, which, that's going to go some places. But I decided to make this series because of what I learned during classes and because of NPR's More Perfect series, which is really interesting and I think highlights some of the stories about the Supreme Court that not a lot of people know. It adds a human element to it, and it's so complex, and it's so important to know that, there's this body of 9 people who decide what the government can and can't do. And, it's hard to find something more compelling than that. And I want to present it in a way that, everybody can find compelling, and it's not super dry and it's not super legalistic. So that was the first episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know what I can improve because, yeah, I know it felt rough around the edges. So, thank you.